Hi there, how's it going? Good to be back. We survived Wellington. Our event down there was sold out and went really well. We were very impressed, just the quality and the calibre of people who've come. They're just are determined to have a good time, and it's great. It's really nice to mix with people who enjoy that. Well, we're getting to the end of our series. We're back to property next week, for those of you who are not so into this, but just two things I wanted to mention. One was I got an email from somebody in the last couple of days saying that they'd realised that when their dad died, they'd never forgiven him for leaving. I think the person had been overseas and they'd hidden his illness from her because they didn't want her to have to rush back home. And so when she did come back, not even knowing he was ill, a little time later he died. And so she said, as a result of listening to me ramble on, that she'd been able to forgive her father for abandoning her and really made a difference to her. So that was very cool. And is a good example of how these things can affect us in ways that we just don't realise. And the other thing, though, was just from another email that I got, which was somebody asking on behalf of somebody else, and their question was this: how do you forgive someone who is unrepentant and doesn't want forgiveness? And this other person had said to my friend, or to the person who wrote to me, that their answer was that you can't forgive them because they don't acknowledge that there's anything that needs forgiving, and your actions will be forcing something on them that they don't want. So I just thought it was a good example that I wanted to comment on, of that is completely untrue. And as I've said very clearly, and what the Bible teaches very clearly, is that forgiveness is your responsibility. And the person who's reached this conclusion has got a real problem with unforgiveness. And as I've said earlier in the series, we hold on to our unforgiveness, or we hold on to anger and hatred like a lifeline, because we're more comfortable with it than without it. And so it's important that you understand that, and I have said it clearly already, but this email's just come, so it's worth mentioning again, that if somebody's sinned against you, your choice, your decision is to forgive them, and it's for your benefit, not for the other person's benefit. You're the one who'll die. You're the one who will get bitter and twisted if you don't forgive. So there is never, ever any grounds for not forgiving the other person because they don't want to be forgiven. It's nothing to do with them. It's to do with you. Their reaction in their life is God's problem and God's responsibility to judge them. But your life is your responsibility. And so there is never, ever any grounds for unforgiveness. Jesus, being the most perfect example, didn't matter what happened to him. He never harboured unforgiveness, and that's why one of the reasons that he was sinless. So, last time we got together, I talked about narcissism, and that's the kind of extroverted or extreme one end of personality dysfunction, which is rooted in self-hatred and various other things, and hinders us from forgiving ourselves. So tonight I wanted to touch on the other side of that is going to be more common amongst those of you who have been following this series, and that is this: that what we tend to do is we misnaming, make sure I'm using a whiteboard pen, yep, misnaming, or false labels. And this is probably the last thing that I want to discuss before then leave it up to you to choose to work on forgiving yourself. For some of you, it will be a process. Now, what do I mean by this? When I talk about misnaming, is that instead of saying, I have a problem with whatever it is, instead we say, I am a. Alright, so simply what I'm saying is that, and it's very, very common, is that we are unable to separate out our behaviour from who we are. And so the end result of that is that instead of saying, I have a problem with lying, we say, I am a liar. Instead of saying, I have a problem with pornography, you say, I am a pervert. I struggle with attraction to the same sex, I am a homosexual. Whatever it might be, whatever particular area of dysfunction might be. Now, this can be quite a big subject and difficult to deal with in a video blog, but one of the aspects of it can often be, and this is very, very common, I was going to say more so amongst women, but that's not really true. We both struggle with it, is that we get labelled as kids. And so often that becomes something that we internalise. Many of us fail in life because we've been told that we'd never amount to much, and you're stupid, you're thick. Some of the things that parents and step-parents tell children is just unbelievable. And school teachers and things as well, just absolutely unbelievable. And that wounds us. Remember, we go back to talk about the body, soul and spirit. When you're a child, your spirit's kind of open. You don't have walls up. So when you get told that you're dumb, you'll never amount to much, you'll never be any good at this, you're ugly, you're fat, you're stupid, just shreds a child's spirit, creates damage that only God can heal. Counselling won't fix it. Because it just completely destroys who that real person is inside. And I know, even as I say this, and I don't, that for many of you will be, this is hitting you where you really live, because it is a universal problem. We do not understand the damage that we do. And children don't understand the damage that they do to other children, and nor should they, but typically they're having modelled what they see their parents doing. If we're critical and judgmental and we run people down behind their back and that kind of thing, that's what our kids will imbibe. In fact, interesting story, I hadn't thought about it relating to this, but it is so relevant, of some good friends of ours, and one of their children's recently changed schools, and she'd been a bit bullied or mistreated a little bit at the previous school, so she recently changed schools, and one of the girls from her old school rang her, and when this other girl rang, her dad, in other words our friend, he stayed on the phone just listening after his daughter had picked up the phone, and so this other girl rang, and her opening comment was, hello, did you know that such and such is a bitch? And our friend's daughter didn't respond to that at all, and just said, I have to go now. And 3 or 4 times the other girl said, I'll ring you later, I'll ring you tomorrow. And in the end, our friend's daughter said, no, I don't want you to ring me again, I don't want to speak to you again. And that was very cool. She knew the damage that having somebody who would just talk about somebody else behind their back and call them a bitch or whatever, how destructive that was. Now that's rare to find somebody that onto it, and it just shows the character of the parents that are instilling such good things into their kids. But that's exactly the right thing to do. I find the same. If I get around people and they're running everybody down, or they complain, we go on about whinging poms, and some of my best friends are poms. But sometimes you get around people, and everything they say is negative, or particularly kind of critical. It's very destructive, and in children much worse. So sorry, I didn't want to really labour that point, but understand that many of the things that you will believe about yourself, you were told when you were young. I was always told that I was a lovable rogue, and so I grew up off the rails. And it wasn't just because of that, but even things that are not particularly negative, or they can be presented in a way, it's like, we've got such and such, and then this is our special child, and what they mean is he's weird. No, I know somebody who that's what he was like. We have our normal children, and then there's da 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 da, just destructive. And so for many of you, we're sitting there and you've got big labels. I am a this, I am a that. Now, there's only one way to really deal with that, and that is with the power of God coming and telling you who you really are. So for those of you who are willing to embrace the truth and the reality of life, that there is a God, and He loves you, and He created you, and He's the only one who can tell you who you really are. because he looks at every single one of us and says, you're fantastic, you're my son, you're my daughter, I created you, you've got gifts and abilities that no one else on this planet has got. The things that you've been told about you for years are a load of nonsense, and I'm here to tell you the truth. And now, no human being can tell you that in isolation and have it impact you. Surrounding yourself with people who do think that you are good and who do support you is a first step. So if you're not ready for God, then you have to at least start to understand that you believe lies about yourself, and that will prevent you from forgiving. Why should I forgive myself? I remember seeing on Liar Liar, the Jim Carrey movie Liar Liar, when he's finally his conscience has been activated and he's realising how terribly he's treated the father of his client's children, that the judge at one point says, if you say one more word, I'm going to hold you in contempt. And Jim Carrey says, I hold myself in contempt. Why should you be any different? And we're like that, and we love to point the finger at ourselves. And it either expresses itself in narcissism or we internalise it and we just become dysfunctional, and where we don't try stuff. We know we're going to fail before we start. So if we have enough pressure put on us, we might start, but we always know we're going to fail, and we always get the result that we think. So this can be something that is sitting within us, and it's where we've crossed a line from I have a problem with this to where I am this. So how can you change behaviour when you've decided it's who you are? Do you understand what I mean? And how important the distinction is? If you can say, look, I've got a problem. I tend to be negative, and I really struggle with that in the way that I think, and that's a problem that I've got. I wasn't designed that way. I'm not meant to be negative. I'm meant to be enjoying my life, but I've got this problem. So the problem's here. I'm here. I'm good. I'm fine. I've got this problem here. That you can deal with, right? Because it's like, we can look at the problem, we can work on it together, we can go and get help, and we can deal with the problem, and we can get back to normal. We can get back to being centered. We can get back to the principles that our life will operate well by. But if I am a negative person, then how do you deal with that? There is no way to deal with that unless we can take the issues and recognise they are not us. They are simply things that are attached to us. And I'm sorry I don't have another solution. To begin to believe the truth about yourself, you need an authority greater than yourself to identify who you really are. And I believe that only God can do that. So my encouragement to you, for those whether you believe or not of God, is to ask Him to say, God, tell me who I am. God, show me that you love me. And He will. I'm telling you that He will. If you ask Him and just open the door and say, I don't even know what this might all be nonsense, but God, I'm willing to try this because my life doesn't work. So I've probably tried sillier things. I've probably, I might have been to palm readers, or I've tried shaving half my head off, or I've tried natural medicine, and I've tried, we go to hypnotists and all kinds of stuff. So I'm willing to give you a shot at it. Show me who I am, and show me that you love me, show me that you're real, and give Him a chance, because it's the only way that you'll reach that point of being able to forgive ourselves. The true self, the real you, the you that will be successful at life and that will make good decisions and that will be a successful investor and a property investor, can only be the real you. If it's a false you, you end up like lots of people that I meet, and lots of people in the whole wealth creation industry, where they so hate themselves and they're so insecure. Their self-worth is being found in money and cars and women and drugs and just stuff that will destroy them. And I'm committed in my life to trying to help people not get that result, and to see them find out who they really are. Because life is a ball, man. It's meant to be a ball. And we can only find that in God. So there's your thought for the evening, a bit of homework for you. I can only ask you to have a think about it. I want you to think about, first of all, about are there names that I call myself? And again, if you ask Him, God may reveal things that have been said to you since you were a kid. And only His power for you to forgive yourself and for you to set yourself free from those things will have an impact. But if you allow it, your life will never, ever, ever be the same. So, do that, have a think about those things, write them down if you need to, and then if you do that, write on a page, write down any names that you think are over yourself, and I want you to write next to you, this is not who I am, this is just a problem that I've had, or this is not who I am, this is a lie that somebody else has said against me. Okay, so you do that, and then tomorrow night we'll finish this off, and I just pray from the emails that I get, and as we go forward, that you'll embrace this and walk into a place of freedom that maybe you've never experienced before. And yeah, very cool. See you tomorrow. God bless.